This is Slam Pigs Podcast.
Slam Pigs Union Smack. I got the name of the show right out of the gate. I didn't mess it up for week 2. Maniac Matt Tennant, welcome back, my man. Like I said, round 2, week 2. What is going on? How was your week?
It was not too bad, thank you very much. And I am really fired up to do episode 2 with you, Travis. How was your week?
I had a week. It was, just a normal week. But this is a very special episode because let's come out and say, well, before we get to any of that, where can everyone check you out, Matt?
You can check me out on Twitter at TalentFutureDW.
And real quick, follow me on Twitter at TheHibikitND. Check out the Facebook group. Check out Slam Pigs Podcast Facebook group and at Slam Pigs Podcast. But yeah, like I said, unique episode last week. And by the way, thank you guys for all the feedback on episode 1. You guys, you love Matt. And Matt, you fit like a glove here. I just did regular Slam Pigs with Michael the other night, and he seems fired up for, let's go ahead and promote it this Sunday. Extreme Rules Live. Bringing the
Slam Pigs party.
I am ready, my friend.
I'm ready too.
But yeah, make sure to catch that this Sunday after Extreme Rules Live on YouTube. But until we get an actual UK television show to review each week, which is essentially at the end of the day what this show is for you guys, we're just going to do what we do best and talk about the good old days, especially this era of wrestling, which, God, 1997. Today's episode is a review of the WWE UK only pay-per-view One Night Only from 97. Definitely a memorable one out of all the UK ones. I would think the most memorable, Matt, probably because it had actual angles, like, play out in a way.
Exactly. It linked to storylines like that went before at, I think it was it Ground Zero in your house? And then it sort of led into Bad Blood as well. And you're right in saying it's one of the most memorable ones for me. And I know there was a magazine over here, a wrestling magazine called Power Slam, and the editor and writer of that called it WWE or WWF then, Best Ever UK in-ring presentation. So I would definitely say that if anyone's looking to check out like the company's best stuff over here, then apart from obviously the UK tournament that's just been, definitely check out One Night Only, because it's mostly awesome. I know we've got a few really bad matches to talk about.
A few stinkaboos, but
a few stinkaboos, yeah.
But this was a very unique presentation. This is the only time, and it kind of reminds me like the old King of the Ring entrance, and like the little jesters would open the door, but they had like 2 royal guards on the ramp like the whole night, like just standing there.
Two beef eaters.
There you go, just chilling, I don't know, obviously for the spectacle, but I mean, let's go ahead and say it. WWF in the 90s, and we're going to say WWF because that's what this was. It was so stereotypical with what, like, either race or country they were talking about. Like, my God. It's just all over the place throughout this whole show. There's bad references, like Austin Powers references. Just stuff like that.
Oh, no.
If you're accustomed to it like us, I mean, it's par for the course, but, I mean, it does add to the cheese factor. First of all, I know off air in like a tweet or something, you got to watch it first because we had to catch up and watch it again for the review. Something really irritated you with like the location, and obviously everyone knows the main event was Davey Boy Smith and Shawn Michaels for the European title. Booked as Manchester's own, Matt. That really pissed you off. I took it. Like, go ahead, let it out.
Really,
like, let everyone know the true identity of the origins of Davey Boy Smith.
Well, it pissed me off, like, to begin with, because the show was coming live from Birmingham, so I just didn't understand why you'd say Manchester's own Davey Boy Smith when it wasn't a Manchester crowd. And then on top of that, he was born and for the majority of his career announced from Leeds, England.
Leeds, England.
Which isn't isn't in Manchester at all. Like it's, I'd say I should get this right because my girlfriend's from Manchester. No, she's not. Sorry, she'll listen to this. She lives in Manchester, and it's like a good 45 minutes away from Manchester. So I just don't know how they can announce him from Leeds for the majority of his career, and then get to Birmingham and expect everyone to relate that he's from Manchester when Birmingham and Manchester are quite far apart as well. You know, it really annoyed me. And the more they went on, even in the free for all, like there was a big. I'm not sure if you got that on the network, because I watched it on like my DVD, and on the DVD it had the whole 30-minute free for all on the beginning. Did you get that on the network?
I missed those when those were a big deal. Like in the night. No, it didn't have that on the network. It was just the straight show.
Oh, well, you had Jim Ross like sitting down with Davey Boy Smith.
Well, yeah, they did. I do have that on my notes. They threw that sit-down interview later on in the actual pay-per-view. I don't know if like they took that snippet from the free-for-all and edited for the network version.
Yeah, that was it. That was like a really 4-minute tiny snippet from what they had on the free-for-all. It was like a good 15-minute interview, and I lost count of the amount of times Jim Ross said to Davey Boy Smith about his, you know what I mean, his upbringing in Manchester, and are you going to be? And he said to him, "You're going to be stepping out in front of a hometown crowd." And I thought, no, like do your research. It's really not that difficult.
Well, I mean, let's get to it. Right out of the, we'll get to that perimeter later because I actually have a lot to say in my notes about that sit-down interview. But right out of the gate, top of the show, Jim Ross with another botch. First matchup, obviously we get, welcome, blah, 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 like they did in the 90s. The fireworks, the spectacle, the little guys on the ramp, the beef eaters. Triple H out first with China, 97 style Triple H, right before he broke.
Hunter helmet.
Yeah, exactly. Stinky Triple H that nobody really likes. He was going against supposedly Owen Hart, if you would just go off the commentary, and had no clue what the fucking match really was. Literally, less than 5 minutes into this pay-per-view, there was like the location botch and the Owen Hart botch noticed, which was weird at the time, especially with like Jim Ross is like an A+ announcer. Very rarely did he have stuff like that, like name slip-ups. I don't know.
Exactly, and I think I sent you a tweet like not long before we started recording this to say, like, how difficult can it be to get a match right when you've got it written down in front of you on paper?
You would think they'd at least edit it out of the network version, but I'm glad they didn't. Like it was a mess up, and there it is for you to watch. But anyway, that's just a little thing that I happen to pick up on. You did too, obviously. But going against the Dudester, Dude Love, Mick Foley's least fucking everyone's favorite gimmick.
Hate it. Like.
Immediately shot to a backstage pre-tape promo of literally, and I've heard Michael from Slam Pigs podcast try to do a British accent. This was worse than that. This is maybe the worst attempt at a British accent I've ever heard from Mick Foley. This is horrible.
Yeah, it wasn't good at all. Like it just reminded me of, I don't know, one of them really bad B movies where somebody tries to put on an accent that's not their own. You know, I'm seeing
this came off like a YouTube video, like somebody filmed in their house. That kind of.
It was just horrible. Like I don't even know why give us Dude Love, give us Mankind. Like it's One Night Only. Give us fucking, you know what I mean, a personnel that we actually like. I wouldn't have complained if they'd have put Triple H versus Mankind in a street fight.
I mean, hell, do it at the cage again like they just had at SummerSlam that year. It's a UK pay-per-view anyway. Like
exactly.
Or I think literally this was
the only give us something memorable, not just a match you'd see on Raw.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, perfect segue. I was going to say, like you said at the top of the show, this took place in September '97. I legit think this was the show was a few days before the Cactus Jack debut on Raw. I think it was in the Garden. Maybe a week or two later, and then it was Cactus Jack, which was, let's face it, it was one of Mick Foley's greatest moments on that Raw. But, I mean, for anyone that's ever seen these guys have a match, this was as standard of a Triple H Mick Foley match as you could imagine, with China interference at all. It was just, everything was, I don't like to say, like, guys phone it in sometimes, but this kind of came off like it was phoned in. to me.
Yes, I got that impression.
But it wasn't.
I got the impression that they were playing it too safe, and that they could have just done something a bit more out there. It was the match to open the show. You set the bar, and you just phone it in. It's not. I mean, it was a good match. You know, it wasn't compared to some of the matches to come. It wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I just would have liked something more.
Yeah, I agree. And Triple H gets the win, by the way, with a distraction from China. Dude loved going for Sweet Chin music, which I loved. I still think it's hilarious. It's just that he came up with that. But I think that's one thing, guys, like going back and watching, especially the late 90s, early 2000s UK exclusive pay-per-views, a lot of these matches do seem like they're phoned in, probably because they are. You know what I mean? Like, not to shit on any of the guys that ever worked on any of these shows. That's just how it was with UK exclusive pay-per-views, I think. Now, you definitely have your matches where guys don't on these, don't get me wrong. Let's get right, speaking of the bad, Matt, let's get right on to the next, because I need to know what you got to think about the debut. Now, fuck, like, I was 13, I was 13 years old in 1997. I remember all of this like it was yesterday. This huge build-up for this guy that I never heard of, you never heard of. If I lived in Japan and watched, like, All Japan, New Japan, I would have known who Tiger Jeet Singh was. But for a young child from the East Coast in the United States, I had no fucking clue who he was. Tiger Ali Singh as a babyface was built up like the next Rocky Maivia, and this had no chance out of the gate. Preach on, because I know you got a lot to say about it.
They killed it straight away. One, his father with him. I can understand the manager, but not his father. Like it came across as somebody being took to school by his father and dropped off in the ring, and then WWE just killed him straight off the bat with a really shitty little promo that it could have belonged to Hulk Hogan in 1989.
Worse.
Where he just went on about he wanted all the children not to take drugs.
It was so random. Like, it seems so out of place for this era. And what you got to think that was a rib. Like, that was given him as a rib. It was cringeworthy bad. And, like, you could tell Vince and Jim Ross, the announcers, didn't say a fucking word because the crowd was. Let's get right to it. Tiger Ali Singh makes his entrance. After Sonny came out and introduced Leif Cassidy, who actually got a mild pop, a mildly warm reception.
I didn't like Sonny to begin with, but not on this night. She was just.
This was the era where Sonny
voice
danced and introduced like minis matches and stuff like that.
That's it. She wasn't relevant at all.
But Tiger Ali Singh, I don't know if you remember, but it felt like months we got vignettes of this guy coming, and finally they put him in this terrible robe. Like the back of it looked like an Antonio Inoki robe. Like I don't know, man. Of course, he gets no reaction from the crowd. And the reaction he did get in this match, it was boos. It's not even a smattering of applause for a Tiger Ali Singh at any point in this. Leif Cassidy was the crowd favorite because how cringeworthy that promo. Just there was no way to redeem yourself from that. I don't care what you did in the ring. Not to mention his finish, and he did get the win. His finish was a shitty version of a Rick Steiner top rope bulldog. What did you think of the match, Matt? Holy shit!
Well, it was less than pleasing, and I think that'd be the nicest way to put it. But it was filler. It you know what I mean? They had this guy to push. They had this guy to promote, and they found one of the safest opponents for him to do that against. And that was basically it. It was a debut match. I think that's the best you can say about it.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so sad, because I don't think in Vince's eyes this was filler. This guy's gonna be $1 million. Nope. And I don't know if you call it this. After the match, of course, with the shitty Rick Steiner Bulldog, Tiger Ali Singh gets the win. Or no, it was after his promo. He handed the microphone to his father, who talked in a foreign language the whole time. Did you catch the little Hitler hand gesture at the end? Because I sure the fuck did.
I did, and as if that's going to get him over in a country, you know what I mean, that went to war against Germany, against a dictator who did them sort of hand movements, and who to be honest, didn't really like foreign wrestlers at that point in time anyway.
Yeah.
So it was a bad move by WWE to have him make his debut match in England. It just didn't make sense. Like, one, he was never going to connect with the crowd. Two, that really shitty promo. It did him. That was it. Done. And I don't want to cast aspersions on Birmingham. Like, I like the place, and it is a nice place to go. But to do a promo in Birmingham to say, oh, you know, I want people and kids to live free of drugs, like, not the best town to do it in.
Yeah.
Sorry, Birmingham, but not the best town.
Sorry, not sorry. But I just, you know,
Sorry,
in a way, this segment and match made history for Slim Pigs. Is literally the first time I could literally write Hitler hand gesture on a format. So I tip of the hat, WWF. Here we go. Break out the razors. Los Boricuas, Miguel Perez, and Savio Vega getting a shot at the straps against the Headbangers, Matt.
Yeah.
Who were over.
They were over. And they were more over than Los Boricuas were. But then I think Savio Vega had his time, like, a year or two before this. The whole Los Boricuas stable, to me, just, you know what I mean, it reeked of let's keep him around a bit longer, but how do we do that?
Yeah.
And Miguel Perez, the hair on this guy's back. My God, I forgot how hairy he was. I sent you a tweet saying, you know what I mean? I forgot how hairy he was.
Oh, there were plenty of tweets sent about Miguel Perez this week. It just blows my mind still. At least he's booked as a heel by this time. That he was booked as a babyface like that, and just not trying to be a dick, but that's not going to get anybody over as a babyface. Like, maybe Tensai dancing with Brodus Clay, but that didn't even work, and he shaved his back by then. So, in my opinion, this is a nothing match. By the way, anything you'd see on a Raw, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But you could say that though, like, from maybe Triple H and Doodlove just about lifted themselves out of that category, but not by much.
Right.
But I think from, like, Tiger Ali Singh versus Leif Cassidy all the way up to Legion of Doom versus the Godwins was what you'd expect to see on Raw.
Right. Well, the Ali Singh and Leif Cassidy, that would have even been on, like, Shotgun Saturday Night, let's be honest. I'm serious. That's the sad part. But, like the Headbangers Boricuas match, the only thing I did notice, the ending was botched a little bit, that I think it was Mosh went for a powerbomb on Miguel Perez, and he kind of dropped him, he couldn't hold him up. But they recovered it, top rope stage dive.
Was that not the other way around? I thought it was Perez on Thrasher.
Oh, that's right.
Couldn't get him up. Almost dropped him on his head.
Yeah.
And then Mosh whacked him with that
stage
whoopee cushion sort of thing. Yeah, they go from the top rope. It wasn't a bad match. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't. I'd have preferred to see, like, Headbangers against Nation of Domination.
I gotta be honest, like, the Headbangers, like, teamwork style were really good. I don't think they get enough credit for how, like, in their prime, like, especially when they were heels, they were awesome as heels.
They were.
When they were still allowed to wear band shirts, as opposed to, like, no, you got to wear these lame Headbanger shirts. But
I think WWF pushed it, like, towards the end of their run, though, when they put them in the cone breast. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. In the Royal Rumble, I think.
Yep. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you've got a decent tag team here, and you.
Man, we have Hitler hand gestures and cone breasts, and no other better way to segue into this part of the show that we talked about a little bit earlier that I want to mention now. The Davey Boy Smith sit-down interview. Now, why I say, like, cones and Hitler hand gestures, booked on a show, it seemed like under the influence of drugs, and I gotta say, Davey Boy Smith looked like he had taken every painkiller known to man throughout this entire interview. I meant to say that earlier, but I've been saving it. Jesus Christ. Like, it's so sad, obviously, how, it's not funny, but it was just so apparent to me because, I've dealt with a lot of people with abuse problems. Like, I could just tell sometimes. Yeah, I could totally tell.
Yeah.
And you said that Jim Ross kept harping on where he was from. I thought it was uncomfortable. Like, they kept trying to make it about his sister having cancer, and I was like, ooh, get off of that. And like, didn't she tragically pass away like a couple years later? Anyway, like, so
Yeah, I
to
believe
go
she
back
did.
and watch this, it's super uncomfortable. But yeah, it's really it was just a condensed version of what you explained earlier.
And it's funny that you mentioned that he looked like he'd taken everything under the sun. His eyes, like, for me, he couldn't quite focus on Jim Ross when he was talking to him. He was fucking darting about the place like he was talking to a million people.
Yeah. And he even name dropped like his personal dietitian or stuff. I've got my mom, my wife, my personal dietitian. I was like, what? He's just, everyone gets a shout out if Davey Boy's getting a push. That's what's up. I bring my friends along for the ride too. But yeah. And you know what? I wish I could say it's going to get any better. For the sake of entertainment, it's probably going to get better because of our next match, Matt. I don't know if you got on your format. What was up next?
The Patriot versus Flash Funk. As if your mid card wasn't bad enough.
Just one more time, read that match out loud once more.
The Patriot versus Flash Funk. And as if your mid card wasn't stiff enough. You go, Vince McMahon sits down and thinks, do you know what would be really good? Is if we put somebody who's clearly jacked up on every steroid going against another babyface who I think it's fair to say was at like the pinnacle of his career. He wasn't going to go much further. Even as Too Cold Scorpio, he wasn't that relevant.
Yeah.
It was just...
It's like Apollo Crews is now, kind of. Flash Funk.
Exactly. It's stuck in a rut in the mid card, and they don't know how to get him out of it. That's basically Apollo Crews, and that was Flash Funk in 1997. Yeah, he struggled to get over in 1996. Flash Funk. I can't for the life of me think what possessed them to carry on pushing him into what was basically the beginning of the Attitude Era. Like, how is he ever going to get over?
I remember Flash Funk, he debuted at Survivor Series 96. He got a good reaction on that show, but it's because like everybody knew he was Too Cold Scorpio. But I think when you they didn't have a choice, WCW in the name, so I mean, come on. But when you do that, fans get tired of that shit real quick. They get tired of calling a guy somebody else, unless it's somebody in my mind that is a special kind of talent, like a Kevin Owens, who had to change it. Now that's not as drastic of a name change. Flash Funk was a pimp. Let's say it. He had to change his character to be a pimp. Too Cold Scorpio was this dancing guy. Fucking Too Cold Scorpio is one of my favorite guys in that era of WCW, by the way. But I know why they did it.
I love Scorpio in ECW. Like some of the matches he had. I remember like him, Chris Jericho, one of the Pitbulls, and Shane Douglas in a fatal 4-way match for I think it was the ECW television title.
Yeah.
And that was 1994. That was brilliant. But then you just bring him up to the biggest company in the world and think, how can we fuck his career up? I know, let's make him a pimp. And he did it far less successfully than The Godfather did, a year later, if that.
You know, I want to fact check myself. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure WCW owned the Too Cold Scorpio name. Now, if he could use it in ECW, I know Cactus Jack had a working relationship when he was still in WCW. I'm pretty sure in 95, Too Cold Scorpio was long gone from WCW, and he was like one of the top guys in ECW throughout all of 95. So, guys, fact check that in the comments. I'm probably wrong on that, but I don't know, man. If that's the case, why not just fucking bring him in as Too Cold Scorpio? And I know that was, especially Vince, was his worst point with like anything WCW, he had to put his change on it. Like he couldn't stand it because he didn't create it. Now they're way more open to that kind of stuff. But then you have Matt, sad tale of Del Wilkes, the Patriot. I actually went to a outlaw promotion show a couple months ago. Tom Brandi now owns the Patriot gimmick. He bought it, and it was Tom Brandi there wrestling. So I met him. He was really nice. Kind of rushed out of there a little bit because I don't know, but anyway, this is when Del Wilkes had the gimmick. And like you said, a well-known avid steroid and drug abuser. He's come out on the Austin podcast and talked about all that. This was in that time, like the 1 month the Patriot was literally there, 2 months that he was going against Bret Hart. He was about to face Bret Hart at Ground Zero for the title. Why not just let him sit this show out? You know he's not going to get over. And the fact, it's not bad enough, A, you're putting him against another babyface.
Mm-hmm.
You're having him come out and wave the American goddamn flag. Not only on the ramp, by the way, the Patriot gets the win, if you couldn't tell. And after the match, you could tell through the whole match it bothered Del Wilkes. He was like, why isn't this working? They're booing me. And after the match, he did it again. And then he looked shocked again that they're booing. Where's the fucking logic? Who did this? Who booked this fucking segment? And I don't want to hear fucking Vince Russo. This was the inner circle days of Jim Cornette, Jim Ross, Vince McMahon. Don't throw this shit on Vince Russo. I don't always shit on Vince Russo. I would like to think Vince Russo, out of all those guys I just named, would have the most sense not to book the Patriot in fucking England waving an American flag. Is it me? Sorry to rant.
It's not you. And he could at least just put the British flag in his hand, you know, let him wave the Union Jack.
Yeah, give him the Allied Powers music for fucking one night. They haven't used it in 3 years. It was a great fucking theme. Stand by that. We should have used it, goddammit.
We should have used it. It's not too late, but we should have. But he was, I think I sent, I'm going to go back to Twitter again, but I think I sent you a tweet when I watched this to say he was like, in the ring, he was stiffer than a 3 Viagra erection. He was fucking terrible. Like Flash Funk, he had like a sort of a reverse sit down springboard on him right at the end, and he looked like he was stretching a plank of wood.
Yeah.
It was that bad.
Patriot was definitely doing his best Road Warrior Hulk impersonation in this match as far as being stiff. I didn't, you know what though? I didn't really hate the match, probably because of Flash Funk. Like, I don't know, doing what he does. I just kept laughing at the crowd reactions, and he would literally the whole match he would kept trying to pander to the crowd to get over, and dude, it's not working. Like, what did we learn from your entrance? Come on. But like I said, he gets the win with one of the worst finishers in my book of all time, the Uncle Slam. I hate that move.
Yeah,
I hate that.
And Jinder Mahal does a version of it with the Cobra Clutch Slam, and it looks weak. It looks.
Does
anyone you could kick out of that? I could kick out of that. Like,
yeah,
who are they meant to be fooling? That a seasoned athlete, someone who's been in the business, gone 10 years, can't kick out of a simple move like that.
Yep.
And I think, like, from beginning to end, the company just didn't do the Patriot any favours at all.
I think he was just brought in for this Canada versus US. I think he was only meant to be in there for a month or two because he so didn't fit this timeline in WWF history. Like, he was a tag team champion with like Buff or Marcus Bagwell as like USA guys. I don't even know their name. Stars and Stripes. There you go.
In WCW.
Yeah, I know he was successful in Japan, but I mean, I don't know.
I don't know how. How was he successful anywhere? Like, if you know, he was successful in Japan, but I'm thinking that must have surely been before his steroid days, because if it'd been like that throughout his career.
I think when he left WCW in, I think, 95, he went to Japan, and then from Japan, WWF swooped him up. That's what happened. So he was rocking that gimmick in Japan, and it was getting over, which is what I don't fucking know. Maybe because Japanese people have always been more respectable in audiences and more open.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But whoever hired him, whoever underneath Vince saw him or saw a tape of him and went, "Fuck, that's who we need on our roster. Needs firing."
I got to be honest, it screams Jim Ross to me.
It does scream Jim Ross. You're right. But then Vince wants a slap for going, "Fuck yeah, let's hire him. He'll be a really good foil for possibly the greatest technical wrestler in the company's history." You know, who thinks that?
They did make me believe it for like a week when I was 13 years old watching.
A week.
For like a week, I was like, maybe, and then I was like, nah, it's not gonna fucking happen. And then, like, lo and behold, he was like feuding with Vader and then gone.
Yeah. To be fair, I mean, that period with Bret Hart was probably, and I know he's been tag team champion in Asia and WCW, but You know, that period with Bret Hart at Ground Zero, which I think was before this, because I'm sure they showed like a video package of him tapping out to Bret Hart.
See, I thought they said that coming up in like a week or two, he gets a shot at Bret Hart. We're fucking.
You see, I thought they said that, and then they showed footage from Ground Zero of him tapping out. Like,
well, fuck. At this point with this show,
botch there.
Christ.
But what? You know, I just want to say that he's meant to be an American hero. Like, and you have him tap out to Bret Hart, who's like the biggest heel in America at that point. At least have him lose by pinfall or get cheated out the title. Not say like he's a massive American hero. You know, he's going to vanquish the threat of this
Canadian piece of shit that's been torturing America and all this shit and fucking.
Exactly.
Oh, he tapped out.
No, he's tapped out.
America can take a nap that day, apparently. Yeah, man. I don't know. We all know the tragic tale of Del Wilkes. He didn't die. He just left the business shortly after this because it's pretty much killed his career, how he's booked. Sad.
Car salesman now, I believe.
Really? That's interesting.
That is what I've read. And I fucking hope he puts more effort into it than he did any of his matches.
Excuse me. Moving right along, LOD defeated the Godwins. These guys literally had the same goddamn match every time I've ever seen them work. It's nothing.
Yeah, agreed.
Only this time, Henry Godwin didn't break his neck. You know? That was the only difference. That was nasty. I remember that back in the day.
Yeah, I remember seeing him land on his neck and think, holy shit.
Yeah, it was a nasty tour. I don't know if we need to talk about this match. I mean, the LOD have always been over in England, huge, every time.
They have, but, I mean, for me, like, they are a classic team, and you could argue with people that they say the best tag team in history, but they were stiff as well. Like, from their NWA days right through, you know what I mean, to the Droz days. Do you remember that? Fucking trying to get Droz in as a third member of LOD.
Yeah.
That was nasty. But they were always stiff in the ring, and I've read a lot that said it always looked like it hurt when you fought them. And I've read stuff from a lot of wrestlers that said, you know, it really stung when Hawk caught you with a clothesline, or because they were so stiff in the ring that they just...
you can see it when they're squashing job guys in the 80s and NWA. They're just killing those guys. You know, and you know, speaking of the Road Warriors in the 80s, there was that coin phrase, the Road Warrior pop. You get the Road Warrior pop, which means obviously a huge ovation. Another thing I've read before, or watched, or seen is Road Warrior Animal saying, like, the biggest ovation they've ever got in their career was at SummerSlam 92 in England. Now, that speaks volumes to me, considering these guys got, like, some of the biggest pops ever, you know?
Yeah.
It just goes to show how loved these guys were in England.
Was it love, do you think, or was it more respect? Because, you know, there's a lot of respect about...
Does it go hand in hand, though? Love and respect, in a way?
Do you know what? That's a good question.
Well, you know what? Hawk seemed to really love you guys, because didn't he, like, leave LOD in, like, 92 and join the British Hells Angels chapter or something?
He did.
He decided to stay over there, so... There, he loved you right back.
He loved jolly old England.
I don't know if that was the jollier parts of England where the Hells Angels were, though.
Probably
yeah,
not.
Matt, if you want to say anything about this match, man, go ahead. I don't got anything to say about it.
There's not that much to say about it. Godwin's
really not.
Probably not the best idea to turn them heel. They were okay as a face team. They never really connected with me as heels. You know, they were never the best wrestlers in the world. Anyway, I thought Henry Godwin was fine on his own. And then you brought Phineas in and it was okay. And then you just turned them heel and it never really connected. They were like a poor white family.
I thought every part of when Henry Godwin debuted as a singles heel to Phineas as a team with Hillbilly Jim as manager of Jay Face, I actually didn't like them until this version of them, when they, like, these disgusting incest inbred heel farmers, you know what I mean? This may be the only time I ever liked them as a team in their whole career, was probably this time in 97. But that's not saying a lot at the same time.
It's not saying a lot. They were just... I think by 1997, what they had, like at WrestleMania 12, when they fought the Body Donners for the tag team titles,
they peaked in that fucking match, and that was on the free for all. That wasn't even on WrestleMania. This is the funny part.
Exactly, the biggest moment wasn't even televised to a lot of the world. Like it doesn't say a lot about what WWE thought of them, but I liked them as baby faces. Just thought they were redundant as heels. There was nothing for them to do. Yeah. You know, they were never going to go over Legion of Doom. They were never. They did go over the Headbangers at.
They did take the
Bad
titles
Blood.
From the Headbangers.
They did take the titles, but it was pointless by then.
And then they lost an LOD in like a week. So
there you go. It was pointless.
And then from that, the New Age Outlaws were born. And speaking of the New Age Outlaws, that brings us to the next part of the show. Now, Matt, before we get into this and Billy Gunn and all that goodness, one of the things I noticed from modern wrestling fans who, I guess, like their golden years, like their golden era wrestling is the Attitude Era, whereas like opposed to you and I, obviously it's like 80s NWA, WWF, and stuff like that. They always like, man, Ken Shamrock, that's the guy that should have got a title run. Now, if you know anything and you've watched this promo, you would know that that is so false and farther from the truth. I am so thankful this guy was never the champion because Ken Shamrock just never did it for me. I'm sorry. It's, ugh.
He had a good gimmick. Like, they gave him a really good start coming in at WrestleMania 13 as the special guest referee. Sorry. It just seemed to dissolve. You know, his MMA gimmick had a shelf life, and that showed a lot. He had some really good stuff, like with The Rock.
It was okay. It was all right.
If you're looking at Ken Shamrock's career and had to pick a best time for him, I'd pick The Rock stuff. Because he didn't do much afterwards or before.
If Ken Shamrock is a case of wrong place, wrong time, if he would have came in like 94, 95, he just happened to have the misfortune of being in the company with Steve Austin, who was the hottest wrestler on the planet. Nobody's getting over Steve Austin.
No one was getting over Austin.
That's, in my opinion, that's exactly what deflated Ken Shamrock at the end of the day was Stone Cold Steve Austin's meteoric rise. That's exactly what it was. You know what I mean?
What did you think of him in the ring, though, Shamrock? Because he looked really good.
As much as I'm glad he was never champion, I'm actually surprised at how quick he took to pro wrestling. Now, he was also a pro wrestler for years, too, in the 80s. A lot of people don't know that. I thought he was better than Dan Severn as a pro wrestler by far. I thought he just made the transition so much well. Like, he was doing like Hurricane Ranas and a lot. By the time he left in like late '99, like Ken Shamrock was a decent worker. Like, let's be real, he could put on a good match. He was feuding with Jericho, I think, when he left, and I remember those guys having a decent match. That may have been Shamrock's last match. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
God, Jericho.
I have to go back and look at that. But yeah, as far as him not being champion, it was the right choice. He wouldn't have fitted. He had the look, and that whole thing with him, you know what I mean, the snap gimmick.
Yeah.
Is he going to snap? That lost a lot of momentum, I think. I think it was after he lost the Intercontinental Championship.
I mean, at this time, they were feuding him with Davey Boy Smith before this, I remember.
Yeah.
And the SummerSlam 97 is like the loser had to eat dog food over the European title. He couldn't even win the European title out of the gate. You know what I mean? That didn't do him favors.
Why would you put somebody who could literally take you apart in the locker room, let alone like in the ring? Why would you put him in a match where you have to eat dog food? Like,
yeah.
Oh, it annoyed me. That match annoyed me because both men were so much better than that. Just have it over the European title. Don't put a stupid fucking stipulation in where you have to eat dog food at the end.
Yeah.
That's got nothing to do with this.
No.
What I thought was a poor promo, but yeah.
If Ken Shamrock would have had the charisma of a Rock, he could have been up there with Steve Austin. But unfortunately, this segment of the show was as Jim Ross in-ring promo introducing Ken Shamrock, who couldn't compete. He suffered a spine buster, which I do remember this as a kid too. Him legit getting like broken or punctured lung from this nasty. And Farouk had maybe the nastiest spine buster of all time, in my opinion. By the way, that shit was open for business, man. But yeah, Ken Shamrock introduced, come out cutting a promo, typical fucking meathead babyface promo about, I wish I was here to fight for you people, and blibbity blue, and all of a sudden, rockabilly! Oh, rockabilly!
Fucking rockabilly.
Billy Gunn! Billy Gunn was always the guy in 1997 who got the shit beat out of him by Ken Shamrock. If Vader wasn't there that day to work. It was Vader or Billy Gunn, pretty much, for a year.
I hated that rockabilly gimmick. Like, I wanted him to get the shit kicked out of him.
You know what's great about the rockabilly music?
Go on.
The very intro, which does that. What the fuck?
And that was possibly the best thing about the entire gimmick.
Yep. By far. The music.
He just looked like such a fucking... He looked like... What to compare it to? I know what I want to say.
Billy Gunn being a douchebag because they didn't know what to give him for a gimmick, and they gave him the.
He did, but he was so perfectly groomed, and like his hair was slicked back, and like basically it looked like the honky tonk man's bitch.
He kind of had Pete Dunne hair, except it wasn't to the side in a way in this era for Billy Gunn. If you think about it,
that's a good comparison actually. But he looked like the jock in high school who, you know what I mean, could steal your girlfriend if he wanted to.
Prick. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best part of that rockabilly gimmick was him getting beat up whenever a babyface fancied it, because he was never getting over. Even his feud with Road Dogg before they were New Age Outlaws, when he was the roadie, that was terrible. Yeah,
it was doomed from the start. They just had nothing for either one of those guys, you know.
Nope. But I do applaud whoever thought, do you know what? They're bombing separately. Let's put them together. Let's see what they can do together.
Yep. A case of, we say it all the time, the best things in wrestling are usually organic, and that's exactly what the Outlaws were.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Billy Gunn, by the way, yeah, we were talking about he came down and he talked shit to Shamrock. Not a bad little... It just reminded me of, like, this would be Bo Dallas or Heath Slater equivalent to, for you guys that don't know this time period. It's exactly what he did. He took the Heath Slater gag. He got the shit beat out of him by Shamrock. Next may have been one of my favorite parts of the show. I thought... when they cut back to this backstage promo with Bret Hart, it was a really good promo for Bret. Not saying it was great, but...
It just come off... He was heading out the company, and he knew he was going by this time. And it just come off that massive run of being the most hated man in America. And he was going on to that, like, after it. The Raw after, whatever. And he came across in the promos genuinely concerned that he wouldn't be liked in England.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't see that enough. I don't think you see that enough from heels these days, that they go across, they go overseas and they think, it's usually just, oh, you know, don't like me, fuck you. You know, I'll do what I do, I'll collect my paycheck and I'll go home. But Bret Hart seemed genuinely like, what if they don't like me?
Yeah.
And I like that. I really like that.
I did too. And, like, for those who know what we're talking about, like the USA Hart Foundation feud, Bret Hart really didn't change anything about his character until, like, WrestleMania 13. When, you know, when he, like, threw Shamrock, or no, he attacked Austin after the match. But then they switched roles, a classic match, everyone knows. Bret Hart was always hated in USA at this time period. But every time he'd go to another country, he would get booed. And it was crazy. In Canada, he was revered as like Jesus Christ or something. It was insane.
Yeah, like the Bulldog was in America.
I remember them showing clips of Bret going to Germany and the UK this year before this show, and just getting treated like a hero. So that's why I was surprised when they showed him on this clip for the first time throughout the whole show. They mentioned Bret Hart. He got pretty much a 50-50 reaction. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that has to do with he was working Taker, who was, you know, it's Taker. A lot of people.
Exactly. You're not going to boo the Undertaker. Even when the Undertaker was meant to be big evil, you know, throwing Lita off the stage, people still loved him. Like, you can't really hate the Undertaker. So, yeah.
I just think, I don't know, and it's so right. And even the announcers, Vince McMahon at the very end of this promo, threw the question, Bret, do you still care what your fans in the UK think? Bret paused for a second and goes, yeah, I care what they think. And then you could literally hear the crowd like come around like, oh, what a guy. And you could see the people that were booing him were cheering him by this. So it was weird, but it was cool. I liked it.
Exactly. And he came across as so genuine. Like, I think people in the arena at the time thought, actually, he might not be cutting a a written promo, this might actually be him and not the Bret Hart character. So, fuck, we love him. Do you know what I mean? That sort of that sort of thing.
This was a part now right after this. Shocker of the show for me. To a hero's welcome comes Owen Hart, who goes against the man they call Vader, who of course got he was a babyface this time. The crowd booed him. Owen Hart treated like Hulk Hogan in the 80s. My God, it was even the commentators were like, well, it's backwards here in the UK. You know what I mean? Like weird.
I do, but I think a lot of the reaction that Bret Hart got, that Owen Hart got, was to do with their affiliation with the Bulldog, because of like the whole Hart Foundation thing.
Do you think another thing had to do with that, like throughout this whole show, especially in this time period? Guys like Triple H weren't made yet. We didn't really have any star power on the show come out until this point. You could say the Legion of Doom. You could say the LOD, but that was like the first. So I was like, oh, get the crowd warmed up. Finally, we don't have Flash Funk to sit through. We got the fucking LOD. But I think maybe as far as like a top guy in the fans' eyes, this match was the first time we got that on the show. And you could tell, and like it's like the crowd came alive, you know?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like the magic of the whole show came from the last 3 matches.
Exactly.
Maybe oddly placed. Some would say like, yeah, you build it up really slowly and then hit them with the good stuff in the last 3 matches. I'd have put Vader and Owen Hart on before the Patriot and Flash Funk.
Yeah, and devil's advocate on what you just said, but you have to give the fans incentive to stick around until the good point. So if everything you're giving them subpar or just shit flat out, I mean, who's going to stick with it? It's going to get better. True. I promise. Yeah, it's a fine line when you book.
It is a fine line. It is. I just think placing them a bit earlier would have said to the fans, it's not all filler. We've got this one good match, and we've got like 2 more right at the end of the show.
Yeah.
So you're putting up with shit to offset that with some really good stuff. And Vader and Owen Hart was really good.
I got to be honest with you, Matt. For his time in WWF, besides the match with Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam, this is probably the best Vader match he had in that company while he was there.
Agreed. I don't think Vince knew how to use him like WCW used him. Because WCW used Vader like this really unbeatable fucking heel.
Well, they also use Vader as like this hybrid, like this big man who was athletic and agile. Mm-hmm. And I don't think when he got to WWF, I think it was a case of Vince be like, well, why are you doing that? You're 400 pounds. You're not going to do a moonsault every night. Like, you get it a little bit sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, you get a moonsault here and there from Vader in this era. Like, once.
Yeah, not a lot of it. Which is a shame, because it's just another example of the company cutting back talent when they've got the potential to go out there and put on really good shows, but they have to do it the Vince McMahon way. And that was the feeling with Vader.
Especially in the year 1997, of all years, doing it the Vince McMahon way. But yeah, great match. I would say, actually go out of your way to watch this match if you're a fan of Vader.
Recommended. It reminded me of Vader versus Sting. All them really good matches they had in WCW. Athletic.
Exactly.
Quite heated as well. Like I remember Vader.
Good.
He crushed Owen from the second rope, and it was like, fuck, well, that's over. Like 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
And Owen kicked out, and everyone was like, no fucking way. He kicked out of that.
And then it was like, oh, come on, Owen, after that. But it's funny you say Vader and Sting, especially like 92 Vader and Sting. I think the one at Starrcade or something ended like a power slam off the top rope, which is how this match ended, with Vader surprisingly getting the win. And this time, Vader wasn't getting a lot of wins in his career. So
yeah,
Owen Hart was hot off the heels of that IC title run and stuff. So this was surprising.
Yeah, it was. It was really surprising. I thought Owen would go over, but then you have to look at it. If he did, how he's not getting Vader. And he didn't get Vader in his one attempt at the sharpshooter into the move. Believably, he was just too big. So if Owen Hart was to have won that, I think it would have had to have been, or looked like, an accident. You know, like sort of Bret Hart beating Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10, knock him off the rope.
Yeah, I hate that so fucking much.
Awful finish.
I don't think there's ever been a worse finish for such a great crowd reaction. Like, that crowd reaction is phenomenal, but the finish is
terrible, wasn't it? Just find a better way. And there was a better way. There must have been a better way.
Well, Matt, thankfully, speaking of better ways, the last two matches on the show are the best two parts of it. Take it away, man. What do we got left on tap?
We have Bret Hart defeating The Undertaker to retain, I'm right in saying, I believe, the WWF Championship. By DQ, fine. I'd have preferred a decisive finish. You know, The Undertaker was going off into a feud with Shawn Michaels. So I think Bret Hart could have pinned him.
Me too.
But it was a really good match. Awesome match.
Probably the best these two have ever had. Way better than the Rumble 96 match. That match sucked. Do you remember that? And it was so awesome to that build up for that match at Royal Rumble 96 as a kid because they've never worked. And then that match was just boring as piss.
It was, but then it went on after the Royal Rumble itself. Do you know what I mean? I think that hindered it a lot because once you've had the main event, which was the Royal Rumble, and people are just sitting there thinking, "Fuck, I've got another 30 minutes to sit here now, and I've already seen what I've come to see."
Just to sit there for another 30-minute match that was boring, and another schmoz with Kevin Nash interfering, giving the Taker the finger. First time I think we saw the middle finger on WWF television, also possibly.
I believe you're right. I believe it, but this for me, probably Bret Hart's last great match in the entirety of his career.
I think the Benoit match, if I remember, was pretty good. Like the tribute to Owen match, that might have been his last great match. I don't know.
You think?
I'd have to. I can't think of really too many good WCW matches, man. You know what I mean?
They never ever knew how to use Bret Hart. I think they hired him because of the power of his name, and then they got him, and they went, "Now what? Now what?"
It was just a who has a bigger dick contest at WWF. Like, we'll take your champion. Also, though, I don't think you can fully blame WCW because, come at me, guys, I say it all the time, Bret Hart totally phoned in his matches in WCW. Mm-hmm. Every fucking one of them except the match with his tribute to Owen and except the one in the finals of the Mayhem tournament where he beat Chris Benoit for the title because it was another Canadian who trained in the dungeon, I would guess. He didn't phone in that one either. Key factor being Chris Benoit Canadian dungeon in both his matches. But he totally phoned in his matches in WCW, in my opinion, by far.
He did, and I used to say this a lot when I reviewed the DVDs for my old blog, and people would turn around and say, "Oh no, it was WCW's fault. They never really knew how to use him properly." And I was, that's a fair point. You know, that they never really gave him anything to get his teeth into. They never give him anything to get excited about.
Yep.
But a talent of Bret Hart's stature should be able to go out there against La Parker and put on at least a 4-star match. He got lazy. He took the money from WCW, and the screw job affected him a lot.
The only good thing he ever did in WCW, besides the Chris Benoit matches, was when obviously Goldberg tried to spear him and he had that steel plate under his hockey jersey. That was the only good moment of Bret Hart in WCW.
I remember that. But yeah, he got lazy.
They could have at least had the Hart's cost Taker the match, like the Hart Foundation interfere and Bret gets the pin, because I don't think it definitely wouldn't have hurt Taker at this point in his career. Taker's career wouldn't have been affected from a loss probably since 93. He was that over.
Exactly. He could have put anyone over and people would have still gone, "It's the Undertaker." You know, we don't view him in any lesser light. So I just think to have a WWF Championship match on a pay-per-view that's meant to be obviously one night only, not going to happen again. It did. They brought the UK only pay-per-views back a year later. But to have a WWF Championship match end by disqualification is just a bit of a cop-out. Like they were trying to protect both of them.
Yep.
And they didn't need it. Undertaker could have been cheated out the title, like you said, by Owen. I'm not sure. I don't think Jim Neidhart was there. If he was, he didn't didn't make an appearance even in the main event.
Oh, it's
it was just Bret and Owen.
It was 97 Jim Neidhart. He wasn't setting the world on fire. But speaking of getting cheated out of wins, the most memorable part of this show, the whole reason it was advertised the most part, the poster boys, the main event, European title, the initial champion, the very first European champion, held it throughout the whole year in 97, the British Bulldog, the country hero coming in to defend against a red-hot heel, quite frankly, at the time. Probably the best heel in the world at this time. Sexy boy Shawn Michaels, right before DX.
Correct, and can I just say, I'm glad you said country hero and not hometown hero. I'm glad you didn't go all Jim Ross on me then, because I would have had to correct you.
Let's talk. I mean, the match itself isn't bad, isn't great. It's just they've done better. These two have done better in the ring. I think the drama and the angle is what puts this over the top for me, and it gets a pass. I liked it.
Yeah, and Shawn Michaels really helped Davey Boy, because I think the Bulldog in 1997 was capable of great things. We saw that in the European Championship final against Owen Hart, if you remember that brilliant match.
Lowest rated Raw of all time until modern times, like a week ago, I think.
So we know he was better than some of the performances he put on. I think it's difficult with the Bulldog to pin it down whether it was drugs or whether he'd just been stuck in a tag team for too long.
Yeah, with Owen.
Yeah, and he had Owen to rely on a lot. I think had he had more really good singles matches against wrestlers who could have really just freshened him up, then this would have been a lot better than it was. But it wasn't bad. You know, I know a lot of reviewers will say one of the best matches of his career. It wasn't one of the best. It was a good match, not the best match. I think I enjoyed it more than the In Your House Beware of Dog match, but I didn't enjoy it as much as their King of the Ring 96 match.
That's what I was going to say. That is their best match. Their King of the Ring 96 match where Owen kept interfering and stuff. That was their best match, in my opinion.
Yeah, by far. But, I mean, Bulldog did a great sale job on the leg.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're going to lose to a heel, in 97, you wanted to lose to Shawn Michaels, because he might have been a cocky so-and-so, but you're not going to beat him for heat. You know, and to be honest, you lose to Shawn Michaels, you've not lost anything in image. It's like losing to the Undertaker. You're not going to be looked down on for losing to him.
Yeah. A lot of people said this may have buried. This was booked to bury Davey. I totally disagree.
Me too.
I think this was all booked. A lot of people questioned Shawn didn't need the European title. No, he didn't, but this was brand new title. The title needed Shawn Michaels, and I think putting it on another guy who was a bigger name than Davey Boy Smith, quite frankly, was a good move. Now, what they did with it, just doing that handing off and laying down for Triple H, is another story.
That was trash. But the story that I've heard quite a few times come out of it is the ending of the match was Shawn's idea. He basically, I mean, this is only rumour, I don't know if it's true, but he basically told Vince that if he wanted a memorable ending to the match, if he wanted like a lot of heel heat, then what better way than to screw the Bulldog in his own country? And I can believe that.
And I agree with that. I agree with
that. I agree. Me too. And the original plan, it never came about, but the original plan I've heard was to have a second show, like a second pay-per-view in England, not long after One Night Only, for the Bulldog to win the title back in a sort of redemption story. Whether that's true or not, I can't tell you. That's just what I've heard. But it would make sense if that was true.
Yeah, sadly, we'll never know. I think the next one was in like the spring of '98 when they had one of these pay-per-views, right? Maybe for episode 3, that'll be the next one we'll tackle. Who knows? But I got to say, up and down the card, and yet for me, obviously, you take this main event and the Bret match out of this. This was a shitty house show, but
yeah,
for the final 2 matches alone, I guess my final grade coming away from this whole show, Matt, I'm going to give a solid B. I can't really give it any higher or less, in my opinion. I just think a lot of it has to do with nostalgia, and I was catching Raw every single week. I wouldn't miss it during this time period. Even the show felt like a big deal back then.
It did, and I'd give it... I'm going to go B+, because I don't think the opening match was terrible. I think it set the show up okay. But, I mean, Owen versus Vader was a really nice surprise.
It was.
The WWF Championship match was solid from beginning to end. And I haven't really seen a reaction to a loss like the Bulldog's loss.
The trash was flying NWA style. Like
exactly, it was everywhere.
And of course, you get that iconic pose of Triple H holding up Shawn Michaels holding the belt in the air while these like empty water bottles are hitting him in the head.
I think that all just added to the feeling of we've sat through a really shitty undercard, but it was sort of worth it because we got to see history. And to my knowledge, apart from the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam '92, this was the first WWF Championship to change hands since then.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
I think you're right, and I also think it was like the first big show ever, like available on pay-per-view since SummerSlam '92.
Exactly. We hadn't had another one. We had events called UK Rampage.
Yeah, the Rampage tours and stuff. For like VHS releases, they would put those matches on compilation.
Exactly, and we had them we had to pay from over here on Sky Box Office, which like all the current WWE pay-per-views are on if you haven't got the network in the UK. So they were a sort of a big deal. But I remember UK Rampage 92 or 93 was headlined by Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Kamala.
Wow.
And then the other one was, I believe, Jim Duggan versus Lex Luger.
God, they just love booking American heroes with flags in their main events and shit.
Exactly.
In England.
They could not get out of the habit of it.
I think I'm pretty sure you're right with me when I say this before we sign off tonight. My final takeaway on the show, one of the things that irritate the shit out of me the most, as most people, when people glorify the Attitude Era and they're in denial of the shitty parts of it, I think this card is a prime example of, for as much as people praise about the Attitude Era, there was just as much shit to go along with it. Well, they have it next time on Slam Pigs Union Smack. We're going to check out Capital Carnage 98. A little bit more attitude in WWF at that point. But, Matt, it's been real, man. We have gone over an hour. Longest Union Smack yet. For the last time, where can everyone check you out?
You can find me on Twitter at TenantFutureDW, and my blog is www.headlocksandpiledrivers.blogspot.com. But don't expect a lot of stuff on there just yet until I've finished what I'm working on.
Let the man finish, guys. Then it'll be up in front of you.
Let me finish. Don't have to move.
And as always, follow me on Twitter at TheHibikitMD. Check out the Facebook group. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit that like button. And this Sunday, once again, Matt, live. Slam Pigs Podcast. The entire shebang. All four of us. 4-man booth. Extreme Rules post show. Be sure to catch that right here on the channel this Sunday. Until then, for myself, Maniac Matt Tennant, I'm Travis from Slam Pigs Podcast. Cheerio, mates.
Hey, you dirty fucking pigs. Mike here from the Slam Pigs Podcast, reminding you once again to check us out on Twitter, whether it be the Slam Pigs Podcast, whether it be me at Mike the Slam Pig, or whether it be our sister show, The Reset Button. Check us out. Also, you can find us on Facebook at the Slam Pigs Podcast or The Reset Button. And as always, make sure you check us out as a whole on Hibiki TMD. Until we see you next time,